Yo, what's up guys, it's your boy Sami here. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto fell in love with Temari during the Chunnin exam, part 1. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please subscribe to our channel, and like this video. So let's get into the video. Naruto looked up towards his comrade and best friend as he told him to do everything he could to rescue Sakura and run, because he didn't want to lose another important friend. Disbelief filled those cerulean hues as they focused on Uchiha Sasuke, as they were located on the branch of a tree in the forest outside Konohagakure. Their fight was with one similar towards the blonde ninja. However, those words had struck him with some inspiration or perhaps a complete realization of the situation. Everyone was doing their best to fight this battle, to protect everything and everyone that they held precious in their hearts. Standing up with a quiet set of determination and confidence, he scoffed slightly before staring up towards the other bearer of a demonic presence, Gar. I thought he was strong. The first part of his speech was filled with this newly acquired determination, as his fists began to clench at his sides in a way to control his emotions. As soon as he had spoken, however, a surprised Sasuke would stare at his friend in complete astonishment. Was Naruto actually thinking about going back up to try and hold his own against that psychopath again? Is Naruto crazy? There was no way Sasuke was going to risk losing his best friend and Sakura all because Naruto thought he was ready to fight. That is, until he heard the rest of the ninja's statement and recognized the determination lighting the clear of his eyes like a fire. But it was a rage of blue instead of red, and orange dancing in the line of his Sharingan. I thought he was strong at first, because he fought only for himself and for love of himself, but I was wrong. Being strong doesn't mean fighting for yourself, it's giving your all to protect something or someone important. Then, and only then, do we have the strength to do anything. Naruto continued to lock that cold glare towards the partially intrigued Gar, his thoughts moving back to the story that the red-haired male gave him in that hospital room. It infuriated him to think that something like that he let someone who believed being alive was only confirmed by murdering others, let him scare him. He was Uzumaki Naruto, the one who'd outshine all previous Hokages, and he was frightened by someone who was just like him. At first, I thought we were just alike, that is, until I realized something in your words, Sasuke. A fox-like grin would be flashed towards the male, as he glanced towards him, knowing well that his friend was relying on the cursed seal, rather than his own abilities right now for strength. When you fight to protect something, you're fighting past your own limits, and like Gar, I have had no one look at me with any human decency except Iruka-sensei and Kakashi-sensei. My childhood was something that will haunt me until the day I die, but, unlike me, you had a family. For a split second, Gar tensed, as he debated that thought momentarily when the words had left Uzumaki's mouth, and was about to protest to them, until he was cut off. It doesn't matter what your father did, what about your teammates? They're your family too, right? And you just knocked your own sister out of the way just to get your high off killing someone. Naruto's anger was beginning to rise even more than it had initially, as he glanced towards the side from the corner of his eye, viewing the Sand Kunoichi that was a silent spectator to the events. Naruto Sasuke had never seen the boy so intent on fighting someone, so wound up finishing a battle with an intent to kill. He knew better than anyone that Naruto couldn't kill the demon that stood opposing them. Nothing I say will stop him now, and damn it, I expended too much chakra using this seal. As a backup, I can't stop Naruto. Even if I tried to move, Sasuke cursed himself mentally, as he fell back to his feet, looking up to see Naruto's fist swirling with chakra in response towards his anger. He had the feeling the boy was about to do something more to amaze him, even if he hated to admit it. This fight was now in Naruto's hands. At the same time, the Sand Kunoichi that took refuge towards the bottom half of the surrounding trees would have met those eyes briefly, and they caused her to flinch. They seemed to be confirming his statement, as she tensed, thinking back to the times growing up with Gar, and the murderous intent that her sibling harbored ever since he was little. She was able to control his emotions better than most, but was this her and her family's fault, or was the Uzumaki dunce correct in assuming that Gar did have a family that cared? Albeit, she was frightened of him more than anything in the world, but how would she feel if something by some miracle was able to kill her, almost kill her baby brother? Temari was a bit unsettled at this mental development, or debate rather, that was roaming through her mind. Her thoughts were focused on the words that had left the younger nin's mouth moments ago, as she couldn't avert her gaze from those clear pools of blue. Uzumaki Naruto. No matter what, he still can't stop Gar. She had to find a way to occupy her thoughts from the altering revelational speech, and would have succeeded too. Of course, Naruto would have simply ceased to talk at that point in time. I never had a family. I don't even know what it's like to have the thought of a sister or brother's affection, because I was always alone. I was outcast and despised. My existence seemed to only bring pain, but you simply knocked your sister back, and probably would have killed her. You and the rest of the sand ninjas came into her home and tried to destroy it. Stopping, he smiled, as he released the grip of his clenched fists, and took his gaze from the vessel of the Shukaku's sister, to Gaara himself. I am Uzumaki Naruto. I have no one to protect or love, but because of that I'll protect everyone. The eyes from all directions would come to rest on the boy, as he declared that to the world, thoughts forming in the very core of all witnesses' hearts and minds. Sasuke could only blink before smirking slightly, his head falling to the side, as he mumbled something towards the blonde. Show-off Temari stood there unchanged by this statement, until it hit her entirely. I'm a part of everyone too. Gaara could only smirk, those aquamarine hues staring hungrily at the new resolve Uzumaki held, because that would make it all the sweeter when he tasted his blood. However, there was a surprise that was more than what the Shikaku vessel had anticipated, as he noticed the hand seals the boy was using. His Cage Bunshin no Jutsu, so what if he makes a few Uzumaki clones? They wouldn't be able to save you. Gar could have only imagined how wrong a few clones were in estimation, as suddenly a set of thousands of Narutos began to occupy the treetops in every corner that the ninjas could have hoped to occupy. Nani? Sasuke could only stare with his mouth agape, never in his life seeing a replication of such magnitude being performed with such ease. Who was this kid that stood before him? It couldn't have been Naruto. There's no way he could have improved that much in only a month's time, is there? Then again, as he witnessed the Naruto 2000 head combo, he could only assume that he was insane to believe it was all true. Temari watched in disbelief as Naruto assaulted her brother and actually managed to damage him. This was something that up until now had been achieved by the Uchiha, but even he couldn't have hurt Gaara more than a small flesh wound at the time. For once in her life, she saw the bloodlust in her brother's eyes, even at a great distance for her own safety, reach a new level of desire. He found that blonde-haired idiot, though she admits he was more skilled than he appeared to be, a worthy enough challenge for the true form of the Shikaku. He released the true form of that, the demon inside of Gaara. We're all dead, she thought, as she watched the ongoing fight now between her brother and Naruto, who was championed by a summoning frog boss himself. Where could the #1 most disappointing ninja have learned to pull that one off, yet alone, hope to defeat Gaara? The battle cry for his opponent's name caused her to hold on to the trees she was stationed in, trying to ignore the ecstatic Uzumaki Naruto. Temari couldn't believe the determination she witnessed, and the completion of what she felt was an impossible feat, the defeat of her little brother, and the demon within him. Was Gaara also one of the people he wanted to protect? Naruto was running up the head of the Shikaku beast, as his fists would be jammed right into Gaara's jaw, successfully awakening the sleeping boy, thus disabling the true strength of the demonized raccoon. Everyone had been watching him, because this was his battle. He was the only one who stood a chance against Gaara, mostly because of his training with the Orosenin, but more importantly that he too had a demon sealed within him. He refused to acknowledge any type of defeat, and was most thankful for the frog boss, making him his official subordinate, due to the fact that it would have been impossible to land this strike in the first place without it. They're all watching me now, like they did then, and soon flashbacks of the past moments flew into his mind and line of vision. After Naruto had declared that he would protect everyone, because he had no one, he began to form the hand seals for his Cage Bunshin no Jutsu. He was expecting a good number, but even he was surprised at the thousands of complete shadow replications he had created. But now wasn't the time to revel in his accomplishments. Immediately he, counting every single Naruto that the eye could see, charged the mentally insane Gaara. They assaulted him with a series of punches and kicks that he dubbed as the Naruto 2000 head combo, knocking the boy back and disabling some usage of his sand. It was then that he had to keep track, though the taste for the attack was less than appropriate. The 1,000 years of pain that Kakashi had done to him during the bell test was issued with the combination of an exploding tag. Ha! Even after Naruto had struck the area right underneath the tail, nothing seemed to happen for approximately a good minute, having blown both Gaara and himself back. Gaara, however, was suffering from the loss of sand that held up his demonic attributes. I didn't expect him to attack there. Gaara was beginning to enjoy this battle even more than his bout with the Uchiha, as Naruto seemed to be full of surprises that kept his confirmation for existence burning with renewed vigor after each attack. He hadn't expected he would have to use the full transformation in this destruction plan initiated by his country, but it was worth it to see how Uzumaki would react. At least, that was how he reasoned, having his body be the starting point for a rising raccoon made of pure sand, taking up a destructive amount of the forested area. Uzumaki Naruto. Well, this was something Naruto didn't expect right offhand, but he was already on his way to roll with the punches, as he took a bit of blood onto his fingers, and smirked. Now, I'll get to show off my new move. Sasuke will be jealous. Wait, no time for that. I have to save Sakura-chan, protect Sasuke, and even that girl Temari, whatever, the sand lady summoning technique. With that said, and the blood price paid for, Naruto found himself standing quite smugly atop the boss frog's head, as he looked across towards Gaara, who was mounted inside, yet atop Shikaku's head. That was, as far as his momentary flashback was given to him, as he soon noticed that the frog boss' tongue was wrapped around him, and protecting him from sand outside his body. But, what about the sand that was starting to get him from underneath? Crap, what do I wait? That stupid fox. Naruto didn't have time to think about it twice, as he demanded that he give him some of his chakra. After all, if Naruto died, so did the greater demon as well. From here, the rest is pretty much easy to discern. Gaara was defeated and changed by the mindset and will of Naruto, who in turn was severely drained and battered up during the fight. Both were taken back by their respective teammates. The fighting was over, but the thoughts that lingered in its wake were not. Temari was on the other side of Kankuro, carrying Gaara from under the shoulders, as they traveled through the trees. All she was able to see or identify was that Naruto had managed to defeat her brother and dispel the Shukaku transformation, and then, they had a final exchange of punches atop the trees, in which both were lost for a time. She and her brother found their sibling beaten and terrified by the crawling blonde, and she herself was frightened with the fact Gaara lost. Of course, the Kunoichi kept this to herself until she heard the one line that forever changed her life, aside from Naruto's declaration to protect everyone. Temari Kankuro, I'm sorry. Their brother had apologized to them after that battle. She fathomed that something was set between the two that had altered Gaara's person, and the defeat to the most unthinkable ninja in the world might have been another factor. Right now, the only thing that mattered was getting Gaara to safety so she could thank Uzumaki later. Approximately 2.5 years later. Sitting within the shinobi village of Konohagakure, the Hidden Leaf village, an overly bored boy would be found devouring his 14th bowl of ramen from the Ichiraku ramen stand. Was it good? Asked the old man behind the counter, as he was already working on his favorite customer's 15th bowl of miso pork ramen. Those rich hues of blue would look up immediately from the bowl, adding an innocent taste to the blonde ninja, as he replied with energy. Yeah. More ramen. It was the same reply issued over and over for the last 10 minutes. Uzumaki Naruto, the #1 loudest ninja of the Hidden Leaf village, was enjoying the beginning part of his day with glee. Usually, when nothing happened it caused him to become bored and a bit agitated. However, just knowing that later during the day he'd be called on to complete his A-rank mission was enough to keep his spirits high. Before Naruto could dwell more on the vague mission that Kakashi-sensei informed him about earlier, another bowl of ramen was placed before him, as he turned to completely decimate the unsuspecting food. The owner of the Ichiraku ramen stand could only smile and shake his head passively. Well, that's our #1 best customer for you. Meanwhile, in the office of the Godame Hokage, Tsunade was referring to a packet that held detailed information on a mission request document. Sighing, she would turn to lie back in her chair, hoping desperately to have a drink and be rid of this paperwork. It wasn't that she disliked her job, however, the paperwork was hell. Tsunade would simply smirk, as her assistant Shizune happened to walk through the door of her office, and toss her the packet. Tell me what it says, Shizune. I wonder what else I should do before the secret mission Kakashi-sensei was talking about. Starts the boy would be walking down the busy streets of the village. The cold stares placed on him by the majority of the village went mostly ignored, since he came to find that now he has people that care, the rest can go to hell. Naruto smirked, as he decided to check on Sakura-chan and see how she was doing, yet at the moment he decided to run off, with the proof of a smirk standing in front of him. Yo. Naruto stopped immediately, jumping back some at the sudden appearance, but could only help to reply Kakashi-sensei. The gray-haired would smirk underneath his mask, not that anyone could tell directly, but the movement of his eye indicated he was at least attempting to smile or something, right? Hello Naruto, I assume that you're ready to hear about your mission. The youthful ninja smirked, his finger being moved directly underneath his nose in a cocky gesture. You bet, Kakashi-sensei. So, what exactly is this mission about? The older male smirked underneath his mask while feigning ignorance to the details of this event, while leading his pupil toward the tower of the requested Hokage. He followed the steps of his instructor with complete obedience, and upon entering the office of Konogakure's Hokage, did what he felt was necessary. Hi Abe-chan. This was responded to by a twitch, and growled wording from Tsunade, I told you to stop calling me that. Naruto only smirked before shrugging, anyway Abe-chan, what's this A-rank mission you have for the future Hokage? She sighed, watching his eagerness cause a slight smirk to come to play, as Tsunade decided she'd play on Naruto's ego for a moment. Well Naruto-kun, before I tell you what the mission details, let me explain to you why you're the best fit for this job, and why you'll be working alone. Tsunade purposely stressed the last word to gain the younger ninja's attention completely. He was dependable for missions involving teamwork. However, Naruto rarely had to ever conceive the notion of performing a solo mission at the level of Genin, even with the fact that he could probably be considered Jounin level already. Naruto could only look at her with curiosity, those eyes becoming mere slants, as he debated himself the reasons why he would be sent on a solo mission, knowing that he worked best with Sakura-chan and Kakashi-sensei. Well Abe-chan, spill it already, why am I the best fit for this mission, besides the fact I'm the #1 ninja in the village? It was during this time that the silent spectator, Kakashi, interrupted Naruto's comment. The #1 loudest, and surprising ninja to be sure. The blonde simply scoffed, folding his arms over his chest, while his head moved to be stuck up in the air. Yeah, so I've been told. Tsunade couldn't help but place a stifled giggle at these antics, before remembering the details she was about to divulge to Naruto. During the time of the third Hokage, our current allies from Suna, mainly their current Kazuki Ichigar, were able to defeat, and in turn alter his way of proving his existence. It is in this fact Naruto-kun, after the mission to retrieve Gaara, that the friendship between the both of you was acknowledged in the eyes of current witness parties from both sides. Tsunade paused for a moment, hoping to see whether or not the boy was able to catch on from this point. He did after all have exponential growth in the company of that pervert Jiraiya. The boy would take a moment to look at his older sibling-like figure, before thinking hard on what she was telling him. Obviously whatever this mission was, it had to do with his friendship with Gar, therefore, he could assume he might have to go to the hidden village of sand. Tsunade Ba-chan, since basically what you're telling me revolves around Gar, I guess that means that this Super A rank mission is a request from the Kazuki himself. A hand would move to stroke his chin briefly, as Naruto glanced at the Hokage with slight intrigue, or maybe it was a complete loss of insight. However, our favorite ninja was not immediately answered by Tsunade, but instead by Kakashi instead. Well, it seems even Naruto has learned to state the obvious. Of course this attempt to push Naruto's buttons worked, but not as well as it would have been 2.5 years ago. What? I do just fine stating things, Kakashi-sensei. The boy seemed to find himself growling at the last remark, while both adult figures took a minor laugh at his expense. Sometimes it was still too good not to pass up on a chance to embarrass or degrade their younger affiliate. Anyway, began Tsunade, yes, this is a direct request from the current Kazuki, and be met to the letter. Since he was so vehement on this arrangement, this immediately caught Naruto's attention due to one simple fact, and that was Gaara wasn't passionate about anything that he could ever tell. Those cerulean hues would turn to white in apparent shock that Gaara's name, and any word relating to passionate or emotions in general, could fit into the same sentence. He did admit that his friend was indeed getting better at socializing and acceptance, but to be passionate about signing Naruto up for a mission. So, Gaara wants me to do something for him. Okay, well, I never let any of my precious people down, so I promise to do it no matter what it takes. As he spoke those words, his trademark of a fox-like smirk would dart his face, pleasantly making him look childish, but in an adorable manner. It was those words, with her own smirk and mental check, that Tsunade wanted to hear. Good, then let me go ahead and inform you about what the mission actually is then, Naruto-kun. When she started using the kun honorific instead of her more adoring term brat, she had no idea, but playing on his ego was quite entertaining, even if she meant the politeness. As a sign of good relations between Sand and Leaf, we needed to send someone to live in Suna and assist the Kazuki directly for about a year or so, and, as you guessed, he chose no one other than his dearest friend, Naruto-kun. And maybe because we've arranged a sort of surprise to ensure two unsuspecting people's happiness, while keeping good relations, I'm good. The silent Jounin smiled, as he turned to disappear in approve, having seen the desired reaction from his former pupil, having accomplished his own personal mission. Well kid, good luck, you're gonna need it. It was about the time of that single thought, that the youthful blonde's mouth was slowly starting to close, after his jaw dropped intensely. He was supposed to leave Konoha, the village that had come to be his home, and future residence of power, once he became Hokage, for a year. Ba-chan, are you serious? I can't do this now, I can't just leave everyone for another year, I just can't, Naruto thought to himself before hearing a rather familiar and annoying voice all at once. Well kid, you've got no choice since you stated that you promised to do it, no matter what, for your precious people. Not going back on our word now, are we? Kid wore a painfully smug expression, knowing that his vessel would commit himself to this regardless. Who knows, you may even enjoy yourself in Suna. Shut up Kitsune team, I never go back on my word, Baka. But still, I just got back from my training trip with Jiraiya, and we still haven't found Sasuke yet. Naruto was abruptly seized by a newly established depression, for if he left Konohagakure for another year, wouldn't Sasuke have become Orochimaru's vessel? Tsunade took notice of the boy's obviously depressed appearance, and offered a knowing smirk, as well as a slight flicker in those red hues. Our reports, and those of our allies in Sand, have confirmed that Orochimaru and Sasuke have been operating in Wind Country for some time after your last encounter with him, Naruto-kun. It kills him to think about the Uchiha boy becoming Orochimaru's vessel, she thought, before seeing his newly vigorous form standing in front of her with pure determination within his eyes. If there's a chance to bring back Sasuke by going to Sand, then I'm definitely going. Tsunade could only smile before dismissing him, telling him to go prepare for this departure. Okay, thought Naruto, as he was packing his belongings into a pack, since I'm going to be gone for a while, I should probably fill my frog wallet, and see that someone can pay the old man for the ramen I usually eat while I'll be gone, and then I say goodbye to everyone. Just as he had begun the approval of this plan, Kyuubi's voice would echo from the far reaches of Naruto's mind. Well kid, maybe you should do all of the above, but perhaps you should think your details out a bit more carefully. You might be overlooking some things. Yeah, and what exactly might that be, you stupid fox? When questioned by the Kyuubi, Naruto began to reanalyze his plan thoroughly, only to find nothing in flaw. PSSHHTT. I don't see anything missing or overlooked at all, Yubaka Kitsune. If the Kyuubi had not accepted his ceiling within the boy, and Naruto, as an extension of himself, he would have allowed the blonde shinobi in wonderment. Well, for starters kid, you're going to the hidden village of Sand, and you're packing nothing but ramen, and a ridiculous amount of orange and black jumpsuits. It's a desert area kid, you need to dress accordingly. I'm sure you need more of your ninja weapons, and perhaps other things of your interests, as well. Naruto thought about the words the Kyuubi had instilled to him mentally, and sighed, hating the fact that the Baka Kitsune was right, as he looked to see his traveling pack consisted nothing of black-orange jumpsuits and ramen packages. All that means I have to go shopping now. Around 5 that afternoon, Naruto had completed all errands that he needed to before his mission was to begin. After drawing a sufficient amount of funds from the bank, the teen immediately proceeded to purchase clothing, kunai, explosive tags, a soldier pillar 2, a medical kit, on the suggestion that he learn to be able to treat his comrades' wounds, and a sketch pad for his newly developed taste in drawing. He had managed to convince Sakura to draw from his bank account, and pay for 15 bowls of ramen a day, and saying goodbye to everyone was easier than he thought. Great, stated an overly pleased Uzumaki, as he strutted to his apartment home to finish packing. Well, that was his intent, at least until he noticed a note that was placed on his door instructing him to the Hokage's tower ASAP. Elsewhere, a purely attractive kunoichi would be seen standing in the presence of the Hokage, and her personal attendants, Shizune. The tone of her hair held the golden lure of pure desert sand, while her fair complexion was made focused by the complementing lavender kimono. The forehead protector that was worn more or less like a necklace, or bandana wrapped around one's neck, with the sand insignia, and a rough smirk, were more than enough to identify the young woman instantly. Temari, I was informed that you'd be coming to pick up the little package for your brother. Tsunade would look towards the younger kunoichi with a slight smirk, her mind coming across rather amusing notions, as she awaited a reply patiently. Temari would simply nod after giving a respectful bow to the Hokage of Konohagakure. My work, as the liaison between our two villages, made me the ideal target to pick up Naruto. My brother would not allow anyone else this mission. It was true that it was simply easier for her to pick up and escort Naruto to the hidden village of sand, but she felt there was something more to it on Gaara's adamant instructions that she be the one, and only she. Temari blinked slightly, as she heard a voice next to the Hokage's ask a simple question. How are things with you, and Shikamaru? Those silver hues would move to rest on Shizune, as her arms folded over her chest, thinking about how many times she'd be asked this question, and how many times she'd hate her answer. There is nothing with Shikamaru. Shizune would frown momentarily, as she realized she had touched a subject that most likely had been dealt with beforehand, but was still agitating for the Sannin. Nodding, she glanced towards Tsunade with a slight smile, as the Sannin decided to inquire Temari somewhat. So then Temari, Tsunade began, what do you think of Naruto? The question was so unexpected, that the compassed young woman was unable to hide her shock at its origin. Raising a brow, she withheld a rising blush. Why do you ask, Hokage-sama? Meanwhile, Naruto had just got past 2 pesky Anbu members that were being asked towards him. True, they normally treated him with respect especially now, but there were still those who rejected the vessel of the Kyuubi wholeheartedly. The singular singing to them both was enough to knock a little sense into the two. After all, he was being trained by Jiraiya to take on who he needed to later in life, and made his way to the office of the Hokages a few moments after all this transpired. It was quiet in there, as he opened the door seconds after a statement that muffled no particular interest in the mail. Hi Abachan. Before Tsunade could greet him, those blue eyes were drawn to see a fairly attractive young woman with a slender frame and curves. A soft blush crossed his face, wondering who the beautiful lady was until he noted a familiar facial expression, hair, and forehead protector. Temari. He was greeted by a simple nod and a slight wave, Konnichiwa Naruto. The boy ran up to give the older kunoichi a hug, but seemed to trip on his feet, effectively tackling Temari as he fell. The two landed in a rather uncomfortable position, Naruto's face planted along Temari's chest, while his arms held her body pinned underneath her own. Temari's legs seemed to just wrap around the male's waist, as her body arched, looking at him with a hard-drawn breath and blush. Pervert. Though the thought entered her mind, neither Temari or Naruto had decided to leave their rather awkward position, as in fact, they both enjoyed their sexual positions, that is until the stifled laughter of Tsunade, and Shizune rallied Naruto to get up, and offer his hand to help Temari up. Temari, I'm really sorry, I was trying to give you a hug, and I tripped, and I am sorry. Naruto blushed furiously, as he helped her up, knowing that it was an accident, and that he didn't mean anything perverted. Oh lord, how he prayed that she didn't take it up that way or he was dead, and it was about that time that Kyuubi decided to interfere with his thoughts. Well kid, I never thought you had it in you to go after her like that. I guess you were just lusting for her a bit too much. You just had to pin her down, and see what she felt like. Maybe you can. Shut up you perverted fox. Naruto growled, as he replied towards Kyuubi's perverted comments about Temari's body, the blush on his face deepening to a crimson color, as he thought about them then froze. Oh I mean. Temari glanced at him, as he held her up, the apologetic look in his eyes caused her to assume, and trust that he was not being a pervert with that action, but had really tripped on his own feet. She sighed, as she wondered why she had not pushed him off earlier, and was about to dismiss this, as another mild accidental case, until he uttered the words about a perverted fox. Temari knew that the Kyuubi was sealed within him, and perhaps just perhaps, it was egging him on in a perverted manner. Naruto. She growled his name while looking at him with a rather fierce intent to kill, as her fist slammed the poor boy into the wall of the Hokage's office. Pervert. About an hour and a half later, Naruto would spring into consciousness and whine. Tsunade would look down to him with a slight sigh before turning her head to face Temari. I doubt you'll be leaving to escort Naruto to Suna today, so I'll arrange a hotel for you to stay in until you both depart tomorrow. The moment our number one friendliest ninja heard this, he simply stated from nowhere, "No. She can stay at my place. I have a guest room that hasn't been used before, and I'd feel bad if Temari had to go sleep at a hotel, because I got knocked out by that stupid fox." He blushed and sighed. Tsunade was about to imply that Temari stay with Naruto next, but it seemed that he beat her to it, and that was all the better for her own personal agenda. Glancing towards the Sand Inn, she smiled, and questioned her to the comfort of that arrangement. "Temari, how do you feel about this?" As soon as the Kunoichi didn't give an instant remark of displeasure, Tsunade dismissed them from her office immediately. Good, now get going." Elsewhere, the Kazukichi would be in his office reviewing a document that had been sent to him from Konoha a week prior. He simply still found enjoyment in reviewing it from time to time. "Dear Kazukichi-sama, about the details of Naruto's stay in Sauna, I'd like to highlight some future hopes by extending his week-long visit to that of a year's detail, and perhaps if you accept this request we can make a little wager. If you win, we'll allow you to make Naruto a permanent stand-in, as you requested." However, Dara found himself staring at the page, as he continued to skim down the rest of the details, curious to see how this works out for himself. The thought of making his only and best friend a part of his village as a ninja was more than enough to lure the Kazukichi's approval. "Hokage-sama, requests strange ideals." After being dismissed by the Hokage so abruptly, Temari had time to fall into retrospect. She had begun to silently contemplate why she felt no objection to staying the later night at Naruto's apartment. Perhaps she began to ponder, with his perversion aside, it's because he's trustworthy. Even with the slow altercations involving Gar, Temari rarely gave her trust out to anyone. However, he did save her brother sort of. The Sandin found herself stopping when her unofficial guide let out a very pleased. Naruto smiled, seeing now that for once in his life he'd have a guest stay at his house for a night, and that made him a host. It was still too early to consider bed, only being about 6:25 p.m. when he stopped in front of his apartment. This prompted the ninja to release a very energetic "okay," thought Naruto, as he opened the door and stepped to the side, so as to allow Temari's entrance first. "Hey, since I have a guest here, that means I can finally cook for someone too." This thought, of course, instantly awarded him a fox-like grin, and of course, a few comments from our favorite, Anomi Kyubi. "Well, Kit, are you sure that wouldn't be disastrous to her health at all?" Behind an immense laughter, was actually impressed that he came to that reasoning without his interference. Naruto growled mentally before replying to his inner demon, if found there was no pun intended. "Shut up, Yubaka Kitsune, I can cook just fine now, and you know it. Now either say something that matters or be quiet. I'm still mad at you about getting me in trouble with Temari earlier." Kyubi sighed before, as innocent as he the greater demon could, smiled, which looked more like an evil grin. "Well, Kit, I didn't do anything, your own body and mind didn't. And that's letting you know you're attracted to her, and hey, with age comes a pleasant experience, Kit." Kyubi won the conversation in point when Naruto, as if on cue, was lost to a fuming blush. Sometimes he had just purely hated the fox, but in some way these weird arguments were proof of their awkwardly stated bond. Naruto could have sworn he had heard someone else's voice, as he turned to see Temari standing at his door. Coming to Naruto, she questioned him with a raised brow. The Kunoichi was overly impressed by his gentleman-orientated action, as it opposed to every other example Naruto had ever displayed of his behavior, and walked into the living room of his apartment with a bit of imposed shock. Maybe he's not completely hopeless, she thought, as her eyes reviewed the relatively clean apartment. True, there were empty ramen packets scattered towards the door she assumed led to his room. Temari simply surmised that the worst of the ramen trash could be found behind that door. She turned around to notice that the blonde-haired boy was still standing outside, and moved to stand at the doorway about the same time he turned to enter. The startled jumping approach was priceless, leaving her lips to open, and words to part from them. Coming to Naruto, she guessed that he was lost in thought or perhaps arguing within him. The latter seemed the most logical in the view of the analytic female, as she folded her arms over her chest. "Did you forget I was here already, Naruto?" Temari frowned at the thought of her host forgetting her, not that she cared. But you do echo a small part in her mind that wasn't heard in years. Temari would begin to start arguing with her consciously. "I was always simply tolerated, as Gar's sister, so one boy forgetting my presence doesn't mean anything." True, but then again, the one boy who honestly wanted to know and befriend Temari, forgetting her, is just devastating, isn't it? A mental growl would be emitted, as she wasn't able to believe the suggestions that her own mind was giving her. "He's just a friend, so I supposed it would bother me." A little bit, Temari sighed, as she glanced up to see Naruto's form moving around in panic. "Did I miss something?" And with a slight snicker her mind replied, "You've missed everything," he said, and more. The moment that Temari asked him that question he blushed. She thought he forgot about her when in fact was talking about her with her. Great, Naruto thought. One of my precious people thinks I forgot about her in the far reaches of his mind. Surprisingly without influence of the, he began to believe that he'd never be able to forget about her if he could. Of course this was reasoned, that he couldn't forget any of his friends by his own rights. No, Temari-chan, I couldn't forget you. The shinobi didn't even question how he stated that, it just left, and he knew it was true. Chan, kid. See, I told you that you were just lusting for some slender, rough attitude, and found Sand Ninja Kyuubi snuck into Naruto's thoughts with his outburst, and then implanted the memory of the boy feeling Temari's body underneath his own. It would seem my little kid is trying to grow up just a little. He knows he likes what he sees, and feels. She really is pretty, and I was sorta comfortable. At that moment he began to run around in a panic motion, on the realization that the damn Dero-senin and Fox were beginning to corrupt his mind. That and he really did enjoy their accidental position, but did that mean he was betraying his love for Sakura? Boy, the boy was beginning to confuse himself even more, and perhaps enter a state of mental instability if not for the hand that came to grab his shoulder. Nani? Naruto would turn around, as he jumped slightly freaked from the motion, until he turned to meet at eye level with a familiar Kunoichi who was simply smiling at him. A warm tone would come to rest on his cheeks, as he found himself staring at Temari dumbfounded, unable to speak or say a word. Man, she's pretty, Temari would smirk, as she took her finger and raised it to rest underneath his chin. So you think I'm pretty, Naruto? Well, at least he had thought that his thoughts were just what they were until he heard and recognized the origin of her question. The Kunoichi's first impulse was to blush towards his compliment, however, she forced herself not to after all, she was Temari of the Sand. Her emotions weren't an accessory she vested, as a ninja, as well as should be that way, so she decided to play this event, and learn more on the mysteries of Naruto's thoughts. So you think I'm pretty, Naruto? Even though she didn't hint to it, Temari was quite pleased by his innocent compliment, as opposed to certain statements used to talk about her appearance. Temari was smirking wildly, as she removed her finger from underneath Naruto's chin. He thinks I'm pretty. And why should that matter to you? I thought you said he was just a friend. The Sand-in couldn't immediately reply with a decent comeback, so instead decided to tastefully, if you can call it tasteful, reply with an aggressive shut up. Why? Did it matter whether or not Naruto thought she was pretty? It was only Naruto after all, it wasn't important what he said, right? But he's important, isn't he? I don't care if you are my mind. If you don't shut up, it's just nice to be complimented by a boy without the bull that usually follows. That's all, Temari replied mentally to the statements her inner voice were making, while giving a quick nod to assure herself of what she just said. Well thought. So then are you saying you'd like to compliment Naruto's body the way others do about your own? A bit provocative, Temari. This was the unexpected reply from what she recently discovered to be her own perverted mind. Nani? He's only 15, and besides I'm not going to say anything like that about Naruto. Temari was disturbed to find that inside her calm, logical, and otherwise deadly mentality, she was such a pervert. It didn't matter that he was 15 when you were enjoying the feeling of him on top of you, Temari. This statement caused the Kunoichi to blush furiously, because there was some awkward truth behind it. She lucked out though, when Naruto's voice leaked into her mind, causing her attention to be diverted from her uncharacteristic thoughts roaming through her head. Well, you see, the words left his lips shakily, as Naruto was attempting to answer. Why yeah, of course I think you're pretty. He began to twiddle with his fingers shyly, as if Hinata's behavior had been instilled within him. You're not pretty, you're beautiful, he thought while attempting to regain some composure that was more than lost, it was non-existent. It was around this time that Naruto began to notice that her complexion was a bit, well, red. Temari-chan, are you okay? You're all red, and stuffing his eyes narrowed to slits, as she seemed to look at him with a raised brow. Ha, was all that Temari managed to say while calming herself, now that her mind was focused. She noticed the expression he was giving her, and smirked at his concern. Yeah, I'm fine, but maybe we could find something to eat. And why did you start calling me Temari-chan, eh? Food would be the best change of subject, considering she was actually a bit hungry, and wasn't Chan only affiliated with Sakura, as far as Naruto was concerned. She's just hungry for a minute. I was worried she was getting sick or something. I'm not exactly a medical expert. Naruto's thoughts were cut short, as he heard the question trailing behind Temari's statement, and honestly had to give some thought, as to when he began adding the Chan honorific to her name. He simply shrugged, signifying he had no clue himself, as to when this phenomenon started. I don't know, but now you get to be the first to taste my wonderful cooking, Temari-chan. Oh god. Those eyes began to widen, and lock onto the pleased figure of an eager Naruto. However, Temari could only stand mortified with the thought of Naruto cooking dinner. With my luck, she mused after trying unsuccessfully to tell him she'd cook instead. That should be quick, but Temari sighed, as she sat down on a nearby couch, wondering how he managed to convince her to give in, to what she felt was an accident waiting to happen. It really must have meant a lot to him. Flashback to 5 minutes ago. Nani, you're wonderful at cooking. Temari watched, as Naruto gave her a nod, followed by his trademark grin. Naruto, maybe I should cook instead. The inner voice ringing within Temari's head began to assault her after the relative peace she had. You know you're curious. The genin blinked before shaking his head with a passionate refusal to her proposal. Nah, it's okay Temari-chan, and besides you're actually my first guest ever, so I want to be a good host. It was at that time the Kyuubi within Naruto began to speak up after his own relative quiet moment. She doesn't think you can do it, kid. Temari began to panic silently. If she couldn't get Naruto to change his mind, she'd have to eat his cooking. However, it was comforting to know he'd go out of his way to make this temporary arrangement pleasant by offering to cook dinner. The host doesn't always have to cook Naruto, and I probably have more culinary expertise than you do. As if to enforce that knowledge, Temari crossed her arms and folded them over her chest. She then decided to answer her inner voice immediately. It's Naruto, anything he cooks is bound to be hazardous to my health. The moment Temari put his cooking ability into question by stating she'd be a better cook, Naruto began to sigh sadly. She really doesn't think I can do it, but a lot of people have doubted his ability to do things, and proved them wrong. Then I promise to make the best meal you've ever tasted, and I don't go back on my word. It's my way of the ninja, you know. She found herself staring into the depths of those blue eyes Naruto sported, and seeing the sadness hidden behind them, Temari sighed. He really wants to cook for you, and do you really want to make your friend sad by being his first and only guest to deny his cooking? Temari the Kunoichi managed to place a false smirk through the use of her thin lips, as she managed a wink of sorts, in hopes to raise his spirits. Just be sure it doesn't taste like ramen. And a flashback, he wanted to cook for me. With her horror aside, Temari was reasonably happy. She couldn't hope or trust either of her brothers to offer to cook. It felt good to have someone interested in taking care of her for once, even though she was the most independent individual there was. Meanwhile, Kano's #1 loudest ninja was in his kitchen preparing dinner for both Temari and himself. He was going to prove to Temari that he could cook just fine, and he never went back on his word. Naruto pledged himself to making the best dinner she ever tasted, and he never went back on his word. This was his way of the ninja. Temari found herself going to wait, since the chef of the abode stated that dinner would be ready in about an hour and a half, and thus gave her time to settle into this guest room of hers. It wasn't that she had many items to arrange, however, she was curious about the state that this unused room was in. Moving down the hallway, and to the door next to the one in which a pathway of ramen packages marked as Naruto's room, Temari opened the door to see the room in which she would be staying currently. It's actually not bad. Closing the door behind her, the Sannin was able to get a better view as she entered it fully. The walls were white, as were the majority of the rooms in this building, but they weren't dingy or cracked. It was almost as if this room was freshly painted. A bed was found near the window, as well as curtains that contained a black and red checkered design, and a fairly sized closet. Simple, but it was rather well taken care of, and even had a bathroom in fairly good condition, as well. It was hard to believe that Naruto kept such good care of this room, and, as she was laying her traveling pack down, she began to question herself. Why does he take such good care of this room, and this one only? It was about that time that the Kunoichi had discovered something, a small journal of sorts, laying near the doorframe of the closet. The cover was leather-bound, and seemed to be in pretty decent condition. Normally, the ninja wouldn't think twice about such objects, since they usually have absolutely nothing that she'd care about reading, but she was curious, as to find some insight in the mind of Naruto. He was after all the #1 surprising ninja, and no one could ever really say they knew how he felt or thought. Temari blinked. Something wasn't quite right. This wasn't anything how she usually acted. Then again, when have you had a chance to just be yourself, Temari? Temari was beginning to hate the inner voice that was located in her mind, as it, as of recently, has produced nothing but aggravation. This time, however, it did have a point, but it was not one in which she intended to dwell on for the time being. And what does that have to do with me being tempted, uncharacteristically, to read this journal, which I'm pretty sure should not be opened under any circumstances by him? Temari was wondering if that inner voice had been nagging her silently, urging her to look into this little book that contained possible secrets, and wetting it. You've always been the tough one, haven't you, Temari? I wonder, you've always felt alone even though you've had your brothers, correct? Well, you know, Naruto's always been alone, so maybe seeing how someone else truly is might make you appreciate who you really are a bit more. Okay, forget that. We both know you want to see what he wrote, because we want to know how he thinks. This is pointless. It's simply a book. I have no reason to look into Naruto's private matters. Besides, his life is none of my business. Temari had said it was none of her business. However, the Kunoichi's curiosity had gotten the best of her, not to mention the little fact that somewhere within her mind, a small voice was driving her insane with its repeated nagging. Naruto had haphazardly left his journal in that room ages ago, and never thought of going back for it. It was easy to discern it, as a journal when the opening line stated, Uzumaki Naruto, what you don't see. Something about that line made her flinch inwardly. Exactly how different would Naruto be in reality than what he showed around to everyone? How different could he be from what she and everyone else in the world knew of him? I don't think I should be reading this. Naruto was laboring away within the kitchen, trying to make the perfect dinner assortment for his guests to marvel upon. The blonde-haired ninja may have been a goof at times, but even he had picked up a bit of culinary talent along the way with his travels in Jiraiya's company. Of course he wasn't perfect, and the real reason he told her it would be an hour and a half in waiting for dinner was because he was sure that he'd screw up somewhere before getting it just right. AHK. I forgot the right way to get the rice and the wine to blend right without leaving much of the alcohol in it. He was about to panic, well that was until he smirked. Okay Ibaka Kitsune. Help me out here. What the hell did Iro-senin say about this when we were in the country of Wave that was his trump card? Kyuubi always remembered everything so he could get the information from that stubborn fox. Well, at least he had hoped it would be that easy. And what if I refused to help you out? After all, you did say that you would make the best meal she ever tasted. That doesn't include my kit. Kyuubi watched Naruto's mental image from behind his cage, laughing at the horrified expression the boy was giving him. Like Kakashi and Tsunade before him to this day, he couldn't pass up a chance to embarrass or enrage his vessel. Naruto growled, as he left the rice-wine mixture alone for now, and was moving to prepare some seasonal chicken, all the while taking out his anger with the kitsune that was sealed within his body. Baka Kitsune. I thought you protected your own, and doesn't that mean protecting them from mistakes too? Gah. Damn you stupid fox. It seemed to him that his friend, in a manner of speaking in terms of their mutual relationship, was intent on being an asshole at times when Naruto actually wanted his help. It was priceless the way that his kid reacted to his comments, and it was something the greater demon would never get tired of so long as he was alive. Which was another point he had to make in protecting his own, and grinned with demonic malice. Of course, there was no threat behind it whatsoever. Well Kit, first you use your chakra to separate the alcohol from the flavor, afterwards you slowly begin to dilute what you've separated with an additional dish that you've already prepared or maybe some lemon juice. But then again, if you're really lusting for her company tonight, maybe you should give her a massage. You know you liked how she felt. Naruto began to flush, as he was unable to help, but listened to the perverted comments that the Kyuubi began to insert into his mind, and sighed. It was about that time that he noticed he was over-seasoning the chicken a bit, and quickly began trying to correct his mistake by immediately deciding to begin cooking it. Ignoring the statement made by that Kitsune team, he decided while the seasoned chicken was cooking, he'd begin to take the advice given behind that. Yet, his mind did keep wandering to think about a certain Kanoichi. Those silver shoes would begin scanning the paper within the journal, reading every word that appeared to her vision carefully and quickly. And just, as soon as the beginning statements were interpreted, she was starting to picture a whole different Naruto than the one she believed to have known well enough. Journal entry number 1 Uzumaki Naruto. I don't know why everyone hates me so much, but they all look at me, as if I was nothing more than a monster. I just wanted someone, anyone, to look at me the way a parent did for their children, and I tried, and acted my best while staying at the orphanage. Yet, no one ever wanted to adopt me. They only looked at me with those eyes that were more frightening than anything I can ever remember. They were like ice, no colder than that, staring at me with an intent to kill if they could, and I think I would have felt better if they did. I hated being alive, waking up every day trying to prove that I could be someone a parent could love, and just being rejected by every individual that even dared to glance at me. The adults never let their children play with me, and in time even they began to despise me like their parents did. I was alone and hated, and I didn't know why, so I just cried. I'll never admit it to anyone, but back then I cried every night before I went to sleep, and in the morning when I knew I'd wake up just to have people leave me in the road, curse me, and sometimes they even decided to beat me up. I just wanted them to love me, to acknowledge my existence, to let me know that they knew that I was alive, and they accepted that fact. I began to believe that the only reason I was alive was so that people could hate me, and maybe that was how they were going to acknowledge my existence. Nobody cared to ever teach me right from wrong, though I had a pretty sharp sense of it for the longest time ever, and so I decided that if they were going to ignore the fact that I was a child in me, I'd become the child they couldn't keep their eyes off of. The one they would have to think about at all times of the day. I resorted to pranks. I'll admit that it wasn't something I wasn't initially proud of, but I came to enjoy it the more I did it. Then Iruka-sensei was telling us about the Hokage, the most respected member of the village, and even though he thought I wasn't paying attention, it was at that time I promised myself I'd become Hokage one day. What is the Hokage? The Hokage is the strongest ninja in the village, the leader, and most well-respected figure in all of Konohagakure. He or she is a person that will fight for everyone in the village with their life, and command the loyalty of every individual that lives in their presence. A person that cares for everyone, and commits themselves to striving not for themselves, but for the greater good of the village. Of course I didn't know the true meaning to that until I got to learn more about the old man third Hokage, because he was the one who showed me what it really meant to be a Hokage. I promised myself I'd become the one to succeed him, and I knew then there would be no easy roads to obtaining that goal. And even then I knew that there would be no easy paths to take in becoming Hokage. There would be no way I could just make everyone love me, and accept me. I'd have to prove to them I wasn't the monster they thought I was. I tried my absolute hardest at the academy to become someone worthy of the title Hokage, but well, I was never really that good at the academy. I failed 3 times, a first in the history of Konohagakure, and the part that shamed me the most was that I really did try my best. Looking back on it, those times I wasn't motivated to pass with all the hatred and loneliness that consumed me, but I wasn't the only one that was alone. Uchiha Sasuke, my best friend and greatest rival, we were like one and the same, but everyone loved him, and they all hated me. That's okay though, because I promised myself I'd become Hokage, so it was okay for them to hate me. Well, no, it wasn't, but that's how I thought back then. It was sometime during the academy that I had to do the replication technique, and I was never able to do one, and well, one of my instructors told me that anyone who learned a technique from the Forbidden Scroll would automatically pass. I did my best to learn one. I practiced over and over again until I got it right, the Kagebushin no Jutsu Shadow Clone Replication. It was then that Iruka-sensei found me, and that bastard hurt Iruka-sensei. It was around that time that I found out the truth about the reason everyone hated me so passionately. It was because within me was the Kyuubi, the nine-tailed fox demon that had almost completely destroyed the village years ago. I was about to turn to the verge of becoming the Kyuubi, allowing myself to be taken in by anger, and go and slaughter everyone I could, until I heard what Iruka-sensei said. He accepted me. The first person to accept me was one of the people I thought hated me the most, and it was then I understood that he was so hard on me because he cared about me because of Iruka-sensei. I found the strength to forgive everyone and move on, so that I would become the next Hokage. Journal entry number 2 Team 7. Today must absolutely be one of the best days ever, at least that's what I thought during the time I finally achieved the rank of Genin, and was able to start my career as a ninja. Iruka-sensei told me that I'd be leaving his tutor age, and would be working in a 3-man cell that was headed by a Jounin, which is the highest level of ninja one could make, aside from becoming Hokage that is. I was going to be a part of Team 7, headed by Kakashi-sensei. After Iruka-sensei treated me to some ramen, I decided to go get ready to meet my new team, but on the way to my apartment, those icy daggers kept watching me with such cruelty. Villagers began, instead of realizing that I'm not the Kyuubi, questioning the wisdom in allowing me to even become a Genin. But what happened after that doesn't matter, because it hurts for me to think about it, and makes me angry. Well, the other members of my team were quite surprised, because I was paired with the 2 people I secretly wanted to be on a team with. Uchiha Sasuke, my greatest rival, and current best friend, and Haruno Sakura, my crush. It was about that time when Temari digested those words, that she began to feel extremely uncomfortable. She wasn't sure why. As a matter of fact, it wasn't a secret that the blonde-haired shinobi had a thing for the pink-haired Kunoichi. Seems like someone's getting a bit jealous. Temari ignoring the inner voice that survived in her own thoughts. The young woman began to pick up where she left off. I was happy to be paired off with Sasuke because he was the best ninja when we were at school, and because I really wanted to make friends with the one person I knew understood what it meant to be alone like I did. Yet, it just seemed like he hated me, so I pretended to hate him too, even though he's actually everything I admire to be. Sakura, on the other hand, was the smartest Genin of our year, and the prettiest to me. I told myself that I'd do anything to win her heart and protect her, but even she hated me. Even with that rejection, I told myself that if I could prove to Sakura I was a decent guy, she'd like me. But even as I'm writing these words now, and even then, I knew she was Sasuke's forever. Reality hurts, and when I came to that conclusion, it felt like my heart, did I even have much of one, was fragmented and broken, all because I loved someone who'll never love me back, but I'll move on. Yet again, another story for later. We waited a while before Kakashi-sensei finally arrived, and later on we realized that he was always late. Kakashi-sensei then decided to give us the bell test, which I didn't exactly pass, and he even did this really painful move on me. As Temari began to read details of Naruto's bell test, and this really painful move, she began to make a mental note to kill Kakashi, if she ever was given the chance. Perhaps, she killed the pink-headed twit while she was at it for being a constant pain for Naruto to care about either way, so she went back to reading. Well, we're receiving our first mission soon, and hopefully it'll be something where I can prove my worth, and maybe it will get my mind off these weird dreams I've been having about a desert. Finally, it's done. Grinning broadly, Naruto smiled, as he reviewed the table full of food that he had prepared for dinner, and the side that was exclusively ramen for himself. He hoped that Temari would like it since he was, after all, making this for her. Kid, I've got to hand it to you, not bad, but if it wasn't for me remembering everything you'd have been way over your head. Hey, but you're definitely in the game for some tonight. Kyuubi couldn't pass up this opportunity to both tease and praise the boy, and savored every syllable wasted. Naruto fumed, blushed, and fiercely growled. You damned kitsune, shut up. And leave me alone. Will you? I'm not trying to get in her pants, you baka pervert. So, you swinging to the left then, kid? Hell no. You baka kitsune, I'm not gay. Naruto was seriously getting sick of the Kyuubi, and sighed, as he blocked all commentary from his mind. Strutting off to the living room to inform his guests that dinner was done, he soon came to stop, as soon as he entered the room. Nani. Temari was nowhere to be seen, and that's when he remembered the guest room. Ah, maybe she went to try and get comfortable here. Kid, maybe she went to change into something more comfortable. Haha, shut up you stupid fox. The blonde shinobi was making his way to the doorway of the guest room when he knocked on the door. She could have been changing clothes, so he didn't want to just barge in there, but the thought of her in a black slip entered his mind. The response to his knock was a crashing sound, provoking him to open the door, thinking that she may have been hurt. However, a different scene was apparent. Temari was on her back, and his journal was on the floor next to her, open. Naruto-san. Temari gulped, feeling for once in her life quite vulnerable and exposed. She was a guest at his house, only to be found invading his privacy quite clumsily for her ranked abilities. Privacy was something she cherished herself, so why was it so hard for her to keep herself from invading his own? They would rise to her feet, as she glanced towards his feet rather than directly at him, before staring straight up and meeting his eyes. Temari couldn't afford to appear weak, especially not in front of Naruto-san, but he cut her short. Temari-chan, the boy's voice was deathly chill, as those blue eyes began to narrow on the kunoichi's frame. Yes, Naruto-san, I apologize F. Once again she was cut off in mid-apology for her actions. Dinner's ready Temari-chan, and prepared to tell me how good my wonderful cooking is. Naruto's expression completely changed from the reaperish tone that had been placed there merely moments beforehand. It seemed that he was now overly abundant in energy, and could actually care less about the red-handed action of reviewing the private thoughts of his existence. Granted, what she had read was 3 years post-dated, but still. Temari was for the second time in her life, completely stunned, as the confidence in her rough outer appearance was deteriorating under a simple question, and mask of confusion. He's not mad at me, you're not mad at me, Naruto-san. Naruto was smirking vividly, he simply couldn't contain his laughter any longer, and burst into hysterics. Oh man. You should have seen the look on your face Temari-chan, and if you want, we can talk about what you read, but it's pretty it doesn't bother me if you want to learn something about me I guess. He doesn't mind me learning about I see, Naruto's been alone for so long, I suppose having someone who is curious about learning some details about his life other than his smile and confidence must feel good. Temari found herself smirking, her own confidence and emotional boundaries placed over her person once more, as she walked up towards the younger teen, but was now resorting to the twiddling of his fingers. Well Naruto-kun, don't keep me waiting too long, if you know what I mean. Yes. My kid is finally going to get laid, and maybe start a litter of his own. Think of the blood limit your kids could have, and not to mention you get the rough lover you've been for. Naruto, however, could only blush, and stare straight into her eyes with a nervous caution. Nani? Temari grinned wickedly, enjoying this moment a bit too much for Naruto's own good. She could hold this up for hours before letting the boy out of her tease, but decided to make the final act then. She leaned forward towards Naruto, purposely closing the distance to their lips, so that they were nearly touching. Naruto-kun. Oh god, could that stupid fox be right for once? Your wonderful cooking, don't keep me waiting, I am hungry you know. Temari sighed mentally, as her inner voice seemed to come back to haunt her. When did you start calling him Naruto-san? Better yet, when did Naruto-kun become a possibility? Temari growled mentally, as she replied, after I finally began to understand just how alone he feels, because I feel it too, just not as strong as Naruto, and maybe in a completely different sense, besides, I respect him. Correction, you want him. Naruto mentally sighed, as he listened to her words, I guess she didn't mean it like that then. Sorry kid, I guess you'll have to enjoy her with your eyes only then. Though I admit, that's not so bad either. The close distance that separated their lips caused him to blush deeply, his face burning with the intensity of 1,000 white suns. Lawsuit from fairly odd parents noted, and I'm waiting for it. As soon as Naruto moved his lips to speak, he found out that he met hers by pure accidental chance. However, much to his relief, his clumsy kiss was saved by Temari's eager return. She kissed him back, and he was enjoying it. Outside the window of Naruto's guest room, a pair of eyes would be peering inside from the window as events unfolded. A heavy sigh being issued into the passing breeze of the night sky. It seemed that her chance to get Naruto alone or to herself was wasted, as he was busy entertaining himself with a lip lock concerning a certain San Kunoichi. She just had to have postponed it after she heard Naruto was leaving. Why couldn't she have been smart and told him then and there? Goodbye then, and without the pair noticing, the figure was gone. Meanwhile, Naruto was confused as to why Temari had kissed him back, and boy was she good, but, as well, why did he like it so much? Wasn't he loyal to Sakura at the moment, despite having lost her to Sasuke years ago? Come on kid, what does that pink-haired girl have that Temari doesn't? You're enjoying her taste, aren't you? Isn't it just wonderful? Around the same time, Temari was lost to her own confusion and perverted inner thoughts, in place of Naruto's perverted Kyuubi. Why did she kiss him back? She knew it was an accident, but there was something hidden in that clumsily oriented kiss that sympathized with her own desires. The answer was quite simple in the end. Temari wanted to kiss him, and she knew he wanted the same if not more for her. He's not the best kisser, but you can teach him how to get better among other intimate things. They blushed from the thoughts that were roaming through their heads, and in Naruto's case comments, as they pulled away from each other with a bit of regret evident in each other's eyes, as they looked towards the opposing figure. Both Naruto and Temari were at this time gasping for breath, simply staring at each other with confusion written plainly over their facial features. She does taste good. He could learn to do a lot of things, but I don't love Sakura-chan. Has he gotten over that Uchiha fanatic yet? She is one of my precious people. Could he come to love me? Could I actually come to love him? I wish that kiss lasted longer. I wish I was still kissing him. They both sighed, as things were just beginning to complicate themselves the more each ninja thought. As their breath began to find stability, there was one thought that they kept in common between them to the letter. This is confusing. Thanks for watching my video. Leave a like if you enjoyed my video, and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.